So the quote that I've chosen is, "Go beyond the limitations of your mind." And then the second quote is, "Your mind can be a friend or a foe."
What does they mean for you?
Well, in my first experience with Guruji in 1977, it was one of the first intensives that he taught. And one day he decided he was going to teach us full arm balance. And we all went to the wall, and he walked up and down and saw, just had a look at us. And right after that he said, "Okay, bend over and kick your legs up the wall." And I stood there paralyzed. I was so frightened. And he came over to me and saw that I was frightened. He saw that I was scared, and he said, "You have to go beyond the limitations of your mind." And he's a small person in comparison to me, and he looked up at me and looked right into my eyes and said, "Go beyond the limitations of your mind," in a booming voice. And before you know it, I had kicked up onto the wall, and I was so exuberant and so happy and so empowered. And I realized when I came down, of course, that it wasn't my body that was preventing me from kicking up into full arm balance. It was my concept of myself. It was what my mind was telling me. My mind was telling me, "Oh, your arms are weak. Oh, you won't be able to balance." So this quote is a quote that has stayed with me almost all my life. And it's a very, very meaningful quote, because often we identify with our thoughts and with our feelings. And of course, the message of yoga, and this is Guruji's teaching, is that we attach ourselves, or we look to that which is changeless in ourselves and not that which is changing. So he keeps coming back to that. He has a way of piercing through your veil of avidya and helping you to relate and to move, act from your greatest potential.
Which of course bridge us to the other quote.
Yeah. Yes, so I have another story, and this is kind of the opposite. About 15 years ago, I was practicing in the Institute, and I was doing what Guruji calls some of the knotted poses, where you take your leg around your head, or you take two legs around your head. So the practice room was very full, and I was half inside of myself and half outside. I was aware that people were watching me, so I was in a kind of a performance mode. But I took my leg and I put it around my head, and I was with my body somewhat and with my mind somewhat, but more with my ego. So I took my leg around the head and it went, and then I started taking my leg further and further down, because I was in a performance ego mode. And at some point I felt my back just give out, and I felt a shooting pain, and I just slowly came out of the pose. And that's what I mean when I say the mind is a friend or a foe, because part of the mind is our ego. So I paid the price of being in my ego on that particular day. It was a big learning experience.
And it has affected your practice since then?
Absolutely, absolutely. And when I practice, there's a dialogue between my mind and my body, and this is another of Guruji's foundational teachings, is that we do, and after we do, we investigate what we've done. We reflect on what we've done, and that helps us decide whether or not we're going to go deeper into a pose or to take the next step. So we have to be equally in our cells, in the cells of our body, in the intelligence of our mind, in the discriminating aspect of our mind.